Sometimes, the truth doesn't scream. It whispers through lipstick on a shirt. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I didn't throw anything. I just stood there in the closet, clutching my husband's shirt between my fingers, staring at the single detail that had changed everything. A perfect lipstick stain, crimson, left side of collar, slightly smudged as if it had been pressed hard, then quickly forgotten. My name is Rachel Miller. I'm 42, former teacher, mother of 3, wife of Dr. Andrew Miller, Denver's top cardiologist, or so the Denver Post declared in its annual Top Docs issue last fall. We live in Cherry Creek, in one of those clean, tree-lined neighborhoods where kids ride their bikes around and neighbors wave without really knowing each other's names. From the outside, we look perfect. Andrew wears a pressed suit and a stethoscope like a badge of honor. I organize school fundraisers and remember everyone's birthdays. Our kids, Max, Ethan, and little Ava, are smart, well-mannered, and always on time for soccer, dance, or math tutoring. I have played my role well. I packed lunches with cute notes inside. I made sure the laundry was folded and the fridge had oat milk. I asked about his patients and stayed quiet when he came home late, too tired to talk, too exhausted to care. But in that silence, I never expected that betrayal could speak so clearly through a shirt. It was Tuesday morning, 9:17 a.m. The twins were in school. Ava had just been picked up from piano lessons. I was in the closet, picking up Andrew's dry cleaning, like I did every week. His suits, his shirts always in a specific order, color-coded to his preferences. Blue, then white, then gray. But that morning, I noticed something was wrong. His gym bag. It was oddly tucked behind the rows of shoes. The zipper only half open. Andrew never misplaces anything. He's obsessive. Compulsive? Actually, he once lectured me for putting his cufflinks in the wrong drawer. Curious. I pulled the bag forward. The zipper opened easily. Inside a water bottle, a used towel, socks, and a balled-up shirt. Not folded, just stuffed. I hesitate. Something inside me shifted. A pang. A flutter. I reached in, fingers brushing the fabric. It was one of his favorite shirts, crisp, white, expensive, the one he'd worn yesterday, Monday, the same day he'd said he'd had emergency surgery, that he wouldn't be home for dinner, that he'd be eating at the hospital, that he was too tired to talk. I held up the shirt, and that's when I saw it. Lipstick, not pink, not nude. Red, bold, no regrets. I held my breath. My heart didn't race, it stopped, then dropped. Not from panic, but from alertness. No woman wears lipstick like that in a hospital, and certainly not during surgery. For a moment, I stood rooted to the spot. The shirt was limp in my hands, but it could also have been a weapon. Evidence. A confession, wrapped in cotton. I put it to my nose. The scent wasn't mine. It was perfume floral, heady, foreign. It clung to my collar like a second skin. I blinked. Once, twice, then everything slowed down. I remember Monday night, how I lit candles on the dining room table, made lasagna, his favorite. Ava pulled out a silly "I love you" daddy card with stick figures dancing under the stars. He never saw it. He texted at 6:12 p.m. emergency surgery. Could take all night. Don't wait. I cleaned up the dishes, poured myself a glass of wine, put the kids to bed, and told myself, as I always do, this is what marriage looks like when you marry a doctor. Except now, I have reason to doubt everything. I didn't panic, though. I folded the shirt carefully, as if it were just fabric and buttons and nothing more. I put it back in the bag, zipped it up, and returned it to where I found it. Then I sat down on the closet floor, legs crossed, back against the wall, and I stared straight ahead. 15 years. That's how long we've been married. I met Andrew when I was 24, fresh out of college, wide-eyed and eager to make a difference in my second-grade classroom. He was in medical school, smart, charming, driven. He told me I was punishing him. I believed him. We got married in a small church in Boulder. Our first apartment was tiny, filled with old furniture and ramen dinners. But we were happy, or so I thought. We dreamed big, kids, a house, a future. He pursues success, I pursue stability. Then there was Max, then there was Ethan, then there was Ava, our miracle IVF baby after 2 miscarriages and years of heartache. Sometimes we argued about money, about fatigue, about his long hours. But I never thought about anyone else. Hitherto. My mind wandered back to the stain, to the smell of perfume, to the fact that this man, the father of my children, had the nerve to come home that night, kiss our daughter goodbye, and pretend everything was okay. I think of all the women I know who have gone through this. The ones who have discovered mistresses, affairs, second families. I keep telling myself, that's not me. That's not Andrew. But it was. And it still is. I didn't confront him. Not that night. Not the next night. Instead, I start a file on my laptop, hidden behind fake folders called PTA Events and Grocery Budget. I began collecting notes, screenshots, templates, his schedule, phone records. Not because I wanted to catch him, but because I needed to protect myself, protect my child. Because the Rachel I was 15 years ago, the innocent, forgiving girl who believed love could conquer all, no longer exists. The woman died just as her husband returned home smelling of someone else and kissing their daughter goodbye. I poured myself another glass of wine that night, stared out the window, thought about the past, about the woman I used to be. Then I looked in the mirror, and I promised myself, this is not a story about a woman who was deceived and broken. This will be the story of a woman who gets smart and makes him pay. So no, I didn't scream. I started listening. I started observing. I started planning. Because betrayal has sound. It is not noisy. It is not violent. It's the soft zipper of a gym bag, the soft rustle of a shirt, and the deafening silence of the wife finally brought things into perspective. He doesn't lie with his words. He lies with his silence. I never intended to check his phone. Not once in 15 years. I'm not that kind of wife. I believe in boundaries, in trust, in not being her the paranoid, insecure person who scrounges through call logs and text threads looking for monsters that might not even be there. But monsters don't always roar. Sometimes they whisper through small voices, like a half-zippered gym bag or a shirt with lipstick on it that isn't yours. That morning, I was still reeling from the night before. I slept with my eyes open, my heart beating like a silent metronome. I didn't say a word to Andrew about the shirt. He came home late again, made a casual remark about a long case, kissed Ava on the forehead, and went straight to bed. No apologies, no explanations, just business as usual. I smiled as I handed him my travel mug. Same as always. I asked about the new patient with mitral valve prolapse, the one he'd mentioned earlier that week. He mumbled something about test results and got distracted by an email. I kissed him on the cheek and wished him a good day. Then I watched him walk out the door. I waited 3 minutes before walking into the kitchen and opening the drawer where he left his phone charging overnight. There it is. Black. Plain. Innocent looking. My hands were shaking. I told myself I'd check his calendar. I needed to confirm his schedule for the weekend. After all, I had planned our 15th wedding anniversary a surprise trip to Napa, the vineyard where we'd honeymooned. All I need is a date. I unlocked it, password easy. It's Ava's birthday anyway. He never changes his password. And there it is. His calendar was empty. No surgeries this weekend, nothing scheduled, not even work. Just a note, Friday 7 p.m., Vincenzo with EP. EP. My stomach clenched. I tap out of the calendar. My thumb hovers over the messages icon. Don't do that. Rachel, I did it. And there it was. A thread called Emily Park with a red heart emoji. The most recent message is from just last night. Last night was great. I can still taste you. When are you going to tell her my knees buckled and I fell to the floor as if someone had just snapped my bindings? My eyes moved automatically, skimming through messages that spanned weeks, no, months. Photos. Some are clear, most are not. But the words said it all. You make me feel seen. She's so heartless, still planning our anniversary. Poor thing. I hate to lie to her, but she's so good at playing the housewife. It's like she doesn't even care. Can't wait to wake up next to you. She'll get over it. Women always do. Each message was like a slap. No, a scalpel. Precise. Surgery. And my blood flows slowly. I stared at the thread. Not just the words, the tone, the familiarity, the cruelty. They talk about me like I'm a prop. Like I'm stupid. Like I don't matter. And maybe, with them, I can't do that. I sat there, phone in hand, still unlocked. My hands were shaking, not with anger, but with clarity. This was not new. This was not a one-time thing. This has been going on for months, maybe even longer. And all the while, I was folding his clothes, cooking him dinner, cheering him on for his promotion, while he was building a life with someone else. I put the phone back where I found it, closed the drawer, breathe in, breathe out, then go into the kitchen and make him coffee, with oat milk, just the way he likes it, because I need him to think everything is okay. That night, I lay next to him in bed. He was on his back, snoring softly. His phone on the nightstand right above the drawer, filled with old love letters I'd written him years ago. I stared at the ceiling, and I thought, not about her, but about him. Andrew wasn't just unfaithful. He was strategic, cold, capable of maintaining two lives without blinking an eye. And worse, he was arrogant enough to assume I would never find out. Or if I did find out, I would simply throw in the towel. But I don't give up. I'm open. Open your eyes. Open the door to a never-before-seen version of myself. People are not satisfied. You will never be surprised again. The next morning, I started with the password. I cross-checked his social media logins, his cloud backups. You'd be surprised how careless people can be when they think they're the smartest person in the room. Andrew uses the same password for everything, including his email. I found the flight confirmation, the receipt for dinner with Emily, a night at a hotel in Aspen booked under his name and charged to our joint credit card. He later reimbursed himself via Venmo, labeled as conference expenses. I started taking screenshots of everything. Create a second folder, a hidden folder. This isn't just about cheating anymore. This is about our planning to divorce. And do it the right way. I reached out to a friend, an attorney, Megan Shaw. We met for coffee. I didn't cry. I didn't squirm. I just laid it all out. One screenshot at a time. She nodded. This is more than enough to get a divorce for adultery. You'll want to act before he does. I blinked. Before he did that, Megan leaned in. Men like Andrew don't just cheat. They move fast. Once he's ready to leave, he's 10 steps ahead financially, legally, even emotionally. We need to get there first. I left the coffee shop with a set of instructions, a checklist, and a notebook that I would label Plan B. That night, Andrew was unusually affectionate. He brought me flowers, peonies, my favorite flower. "Long week," he said. "Just wanted to remind you how much I appreciate you." I smiled. And I wonder, did he give Emily the same speech last week? I turned my back on him and went to sleep. Silence, in the dark, he whispered. "Do you still love me?" I did not answer, because I'm not sure if the woman I used to be is still in this bed. I think she left, right when he let another woman into our marriage. And what's left a smarter person, a sharper person, someone dangerous. I expected betrayal, but not this time, not from the beginning. The thing is, it never knocks politely. It doesn't wait for the perfect moment. It suddenly barges in, uninvited, and ruins everything you thought you knew. It all started with a question, not about Andrew's affair. That damage is cataloged and neatly filed away in a folder on my laptop. No, this question comes later. At first it whispered, then it lingered, and finally, it screamed. What if the betrayal started long before Emily Park came along? It all started when I looked at Ava's medical records. A school nurse flagged something minor, a routine checkup before summer camp. Nothing alarming, but buried in the paperwork. There it was. Screening is recommended due to maternal family history of HCM, hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. A genetic condition runs in my family. My grandfather had it. But what about Andrew? His family was clean? Or at least I believed so. Ava's pediatrician, however, had asked about Andrew's history of heart disease during a checkup. I brushed it off. Andrew is a cardiologist. I said, he will tell me. At that time, I was not so sure. That seed, that tiny seed of doubt, was planted deep in the ground. Because if Andrew had lied about what else is he hiding? I didn't go looking for it right away. I tried to ignore it, to blame it on paranoia. Until one evening, Ava was curled up next to me on the couch, falling asleep after watching Finding Nemo for the 100th time. And I looked at her. Really looked at her. And I realized something. Something I never allowed myself to admit. She is not like him. None of them did. Not Max, not Ethan, not Ava. They have my eyes, my smile, my dad's dimples. But what about Andrew? He never appeared before them, and I always blame luck, genes, nature's lottery. But maybe it wasn't luck. That night, after the kids were asleep, I went back to the closet not to find shirts this time, but documents, files, our IVF paperwork from years ago. I took out the file, yellowed, hidden behind old tax returns. I sat on the bedroom floor and turned the pages, the signatures, the doctor's notes, and I saw it. Buried in a standard consent form, donor specimens may be used at the physician's discretion in the event of quality concerns. Donor specimen. We went through 5 rounds of IVF, failed 3 times, lucky twice, and not once did Andrew ever mention donation options. He insisted on using his own sample. He was even present in each sample. Trust the science, he always said. The team knows what they're doing. But now I'm not sure if it's science or something else. So I called. To a name I remember from back then, a Dr. Andrew never liked. Said he was too soft. Dr. Benjamin Lowe. He used to work at the Aurora Fertility Institute with Andrew before suddenly leaving. It took me 3 tries to get in touch with his new clinic. a women's health clinic outside Colorado Springs. The receptionist was cold until I told him my name, Rachel Miller. I said, "Be quiet," then exhaled gently. "I'll have Dr. Lowe call you directly." He did. That night, his voice was soft but heavy, like someone who had been carrying something for too long. "I've been waiting for this," he said. I just didn't know who would be the last person to ask. I drove down there the next morning, alone. Told Andrew I was visiting an old friend. Dr. Lowe met me at a small coffee shop near his clinic. He looked tired. His hands shook slightly as he stirred his tea. "I'm going to ask you something," I said, "and I need you to be honest with me." He nodded. "Did my husband switch our IVF samples?" He did not answer immediately. Instead, he pulled a flash drive from his jacket pocket. He placed it on the table as if it weighed 100 pounds. "Here are the lab records, the internal memos, the notes signed by Dr. Andrew Miller, your husband. You need to read them carefully. But yes, Rachel, he did." I stared at the drive. "Why," Dr. Lowe sighed. "Because your husband has mild hypertrophic cardiomyopathy?" He never disclosed it, not even on the hospital forms. He told the fertility team that he didn't want to pass it on to anyone else, saying that would reflect poorly on him professionally, ethically. I swallowed. My throat was burning. So what he just made that decision for me? He allowed the donation of specimens behind his back. Not always. But enough. Enough. Enough to make me question everything I thought I knew about my child, about my marriage, about my life. I took the flash drive home, locked it in a drawer. Then I called the private lab. None of them Andrew has ever worked with. I gave them fake names, paid in cash. Then, while the kids were watching cartoons, I collected their DNA saliva samples, hair strands from toothbrushes, and one from Andrew. The next week was a miserable one. I smiled as I picked my son up from school, chatting with moms at soccer practice, having dinner across from Andrew as if nothing had happened. Inside, I am falling apart. Then the email came. Subject DNA test results, Miller family. I clicked, clinical language, cold. The alleged father is excluded as the biological parent of all 3 children. The probability of paternity is 0%. I read it 3 times. Then print 3 copies. One for my lawyer, one for the bank safe I just opened, and I put one in a cream envelope and tucked it under my pillow. That night, Andrew came home late again. He said he had to prepare for an upcoming presentation before the medical board. He kissed my cheek. I smiled. And I knew, at that moment, the man sleeping next to me had no idea what was about to happen. This is no longer an affair. This is about the deception that begins before Ava was born. About a man who took away my choice, of the truth, of the right to know whose blood flows in the veins of our children. The next day, I met with Megan again, my lawyer. She read the report and said nothing for a long time. Finally, she looked up and said, "This is not just personal, Rachel. This could be criminal, medical fraud, ethics violations. Your husband's entire career could be ruined." I nodded, and I want to be the one to do it. Some revenge comes with fire. Mine comes with high heels and a black dress. I know exactly when to strike, not by yelling, not by being dramatic, but with proof, time, and a little black dress that he once said made me look like I was trying too hard. The invitation came 2 weeks after the DNA test results came back. The Denver Medical Board cordially invites Dr. Andrew Miller to attend its annual Physician Awards Night and Gala. Dress code formal, location Grand Ballroom at the Brown Palace Hotel. That is Andrew's temple, where reputations are polished and handshakes are converted into sponsorships, where egos are satisfied and awards are a testament to years of ambition. And this year, he is the guest of honor, Doctor of the Year, for integrity in leadership and professional ethics in the field of cardiology. I laughed out loud when I read that line. That evening, he brought an invitation into the kitchen where I was chopping vegetables. They still sent one addressed to both of us, he said, tapping the envelope. I guess it's just a formality. I'll take Emily, but you're welcome. If it's okay with you. I slowly turned around, wiped my hands, and smiled. I wouldn't miss it. He blinked, surprised, then smiled. Good. I think it will be enlightening. I looked him straight in the eye. I think so. The next morning, I met with Dr. Helena Winters, chair of the board of directors. She was a difficult woman to approach, but my lawyer pulled a string, and Helena always prided herself on cleaning house quietly. I gave her a folder. Inside, DNA test results, internal IVF records signed by Andrew, Dr. Lowe's lab notes, financial instability. The testimony of 2 other women was corrupted under Andrew's supervision. She didn't look up until the last page. At that moment, her face turned pale. Rachel, this is not just a conflict of interest. This is a failure of the system. No, I corrected. This is your Doctor of the Year. At the end of that meeting, she scheduled an emergency ethics session with the board to be held 90 minutes before the party. I walked out of her office, my high heels clicking on the polished marble floor, knowing that every step would bring me closer. Not for revenge. The truth has finally been seen. The night of the party. The Denver sky lit up with anticipation. The brown palace sparkles under crystal chandeliers. Photographers snap pictures of donors in their tuxedos. Doctors pose with their spouses, their praise and their false modesty. And I went there alone. I wear a black dress. What Andrew said made me look like I was trying too hard to be younger. Tonight, I'm not trying to look younger. I'm trying to be strong. And I did. I passed Emily Park in the lobby. She was wearing red, of course. Dark red, like the lipstick stain I found on Andrew's collar. Appropriate. Obvious. Predictable. She saw me. She looked back twice. Her eyes darted back and forth, unsure whether to smirk or cringe. I nodded once. She looked away. Inside the ballroom, everything was shiny, gold-rimmed glassware, white tablecloths, a large screen showing slides about notable contributions to medicine, photo of Andrew in the middle, cross your arms, smile, be confident. When I walked in, he was already sitting at the main table. He saw me, and for a split second, his face flinched slightly. Then he stood up. Rachel, he said, spreading his arms. You look radiant. Thank you, I replied. You too. All that moral excellence, no doubt. He laughed without understanding what I meant. The program began with long speeches and applause. The chairman of the board stood up. Tonight, we honor a man whose dedication to cardiac care not only saved lives, but raised the bar for our entire community. I almost choked on my champagne. Andrew was called up to the stage. He adjusted his tie, kissed Emily on the cheek, and walked up the stairs. He stood in front of the microphone. The room is full of lights. Dozens of colleagues are watching. The city's medical elite hung on his every word. He began. Medicine is not just about knowledge, it is also about trust. Our patients put their lives in our hands, and in return, we owe them nothing less than transparency and integrity. I didn't hear the rest. I don't need to hear the speech, because I know what's coming. At exactly 8:42 p.m., I walked out of the ballroom and into the lobby. There, waiting in silence, was 2 state inspectors, hospital board legal liaison, and Dr. Helena Winters. I nodded. They followed me back quietly, discreetly as Andrew finished his last sentence. And to my wife, Rachel, even though we are about to separate, your support has made all of this possible. The crowd applauded politely. I walked over to the table where Emily sat. Take out an envelope containing cream. Place it gently in front of her wine glass. She looked at me. What is this? Proof. She hesitated and then opened it. Her face turned pale. Andrew was still basking in the applause when Helena took the stage. She whispered something in his ear. His eyes scanned the crowd, confusion turning to panic. He saw me. Meet Emily. See the envelope open and freeze. The chairman of the board took the microphone. There is a development that we must address immediately. Dr. Andrew Miller, you are under formal investigation by the Colorado Board of Medical Ethics for multiple violations, including specimen tampering, failure to disclose genetic status, and donor fraud. Gasps, whispers. Someone drops a glass. Andrew stepped back. That's ridiculous, he said, his voice shaking. You take her word for it. She's bitter. She's vengeful. She careful, I said, standing up. Your microphone is still on. More gasps. Helena continued. Investigators from the state medical board are here tonight. Dr. Miller, please go with them. 2 officers stepped forward. Andrew stepped back. You can't do that. I built this hospital. I saved lives. And now, I said, stepping toward him. You will pay for those you have manipulated. They took his arms, not roughly, but firmly. Emily remained silent. Her eyes were glued to the DNA test results that read, probability of determining father and son, 0%. As they escorted him away, Andrew turned to me. I planned this. I smiled softly. Yes, I did. The ballroom quickly emptied. Doctors make excuses. Board members stay out. Wine glasses are half empty. But I didn't move. I sat there, alone at a table for 10. In the dress I chose to wear when I went into battle. In the room that once honored him. Now echoes the silence he left behind. That night, I walked to the car parked 2 blocks away. Cool city air, quiet streets. I looked up at the Denver skyline and felt peaceful. No win, no gloating. Just done. A man who lied for 15 years collapsed in just 15 minutes. Not by shouting, not by force, but with the truth, wrapped in silk, presented in stylish style. And it was shown in an undeniable way in front of everyone. They say you find yourself when everything falls apart. They're wrong. You don't find yourself. You build her up from the rubble. 3 weeks after the party, I woke up to silence, not the heavy, tense silence I used to experience, the silence filled with unspoken resentment and unspoken promises. This silence is peaceful, gentle, like a deep breath after holding it for too long. Andrew is gone, not just from the house, from our lives, from hospital, from the pedestal he had spent his life climbing. The consequences happened very quickly. After the DNA test results and medical records were made public, the Denver Medical Board revoked his license. News outlets reported with the headline, "Top Cardiologist Faces Medical Ethics Scandal." Denver's golden doctor, charged with donation fraud. Emily disappeared overnight. Her position at the clinic was replaced due to personal reasons. Whispers appear everywhere, from mothers at school to hospital wards. But all that doesn't matter anymore. I do not pursue justice. I found something better. I found myself. This doesn't happen overnight. In the weeks after the explosion, I found myself alone with dozens of questions I had not been ready to ask. What do you do when the man you built your life with turns out to be a stranger? What do you say when your children, your whole world, are not his biological children? And what happens when the version of yourself that existed in that life no longer fits? You start over, you are sad, you are broken, you are angry. Then you slowly build it back up. I see my attorney weekly. Megan has become more than just an attorney. She is a lifesaver. We fought for sole custody and won. The judge didn't even hesitate. With the mounting legal charges against Andrew and the DNA revelations, the court ruled in my favor without a full hearing. I moved the kids to a smaller house west of Cherry Creek. It was a cozy house with creaky floors and a weedy yard, but it was our home. No more sterile perfection, no more being wary of other people's mood swings. Just us, Max, Ethan, and Ava adapted faster than I expected. One night, as I was tucking Ava in, she asked softly, "Mom, is Dad still angry I kissed her on the forehead?" "No. Honey, I'm not mad. I'm just not a part of our daily lives anymore." She nodded. "Okay, you've had enough." I walked out of her room and cried for 20 minutes. A month after Andrew was arrested, I received a letter from the Colorado Board of Medical Ethics. They are creating a new task force to investigate fertility fraud and reform reproductive consent laws. Dr. Benjamin Lowe recommended me as co-chair. Rachel Miller, former teacher, stay-at-home mom, the woman they once called just a doctor's wife. Currently, I am a different person now. I accepted. At my first meeting, I sat across from hospital directors and lawyers in suits that cost more than my car. And I spoke. I told them what it felt like to be lied to. The feeling of carrying children you thought were conceived with love, only to find out they were born in a lie. I tell them that consent is not a formality. It is a sacred boundary. A boundary that you must not cross. Not married. Not for medical use. They listened, and that was the beginning. One early spring evening, I found myself sitting in another coffee shop, the same one where I had met Dr. Lowe. This time, I'm not worried anymore. I was calm, collected, full, and I'm not alone. Sitting across the table was someone I never thought I'd sit with again, Emily Park. She looked thinner, older, her hand fiddled with the edge of her napkin. Her voice was barely above a whisper. "I don't know," she said. "I believe you." I replied, "I never thought you were part of it." She nodded slowly. "I just thought he was broken by a loveless marriage, that he was surviving you." I let her talk. Then I replied softly, "He told me the same thing about surviving you." She looked up, and for the first time, I saw her not the boss, but the woman who had been deceived, manipulated, used. Both of us are stories that Andrew wrote without our permission, and now, we're rewriting them separately. She pushed an envelope across the table. My resignation letter. I am leaving the medical profession. I don't think I am really cut out for it. I nodded, and as she stood up to leave, I felt no hatred. I feel relieved. He didn't win, not with either of us. Weeks turned into months. I started running again, not fast, just around the block while the kids rode their bikes. I grow sunflowers. I painted the living room into an office. I wrote a lot. Journal, essay, article on reproductive rights and medical ethics. One of them was featured in a national publication. The title reads as follows: "What happens when your husband chooses your child's DNA without you?" Author, Rachel Miller. And below it, 3 pictures, Max, Ethan, Ava, because no matter where their DNA comes from, they are mine, in every way possible. One night, 6 months after the party, Max walked into the kitchen while I was cooking dinner. He held up a science book. "Mom, is it okay if I don't look like Dad?" I put the knife down. "Do you want to talk about it?" He nodded. So we sat down at the table where Andrew had sipped coffee and read medical journals, now covered with crayons and bowls of cereal. I told him the truth, age appropriate, gently, but honestly. Sometimes biology and love don't always go together, but parenthood has nothing to do with blood. It's about showing up, about making you feel safe, every day. Without a doubt. He nodded again. "Then I think you are the most real parent in the world." I hugged him, and at that moment, I knew I didn't need revenge anymore. I won. Last week, I walked past the mirror before going to bed and saw my reflection. Same brown hair, same blue eyes, same frame, but different. The woman in the reflection stood up straighter, spoke louder, taked up space. She can no longer survive. She has grown up,